So my name is Paul Ross, and with me is Andrew Stauffer. We're both product managers, ArcGIS Online and Open Data.
Yep.
So what we're going to do today is give you an overview of ArcGIS Online for developers, kind of give it that slant. And what we like to do, there's a lot of aspects to ArcGIS Online. What we're going to try to do is talk about them, but also show you some really good examples of stuff, some applications that have been built, some code on top of it, and try to make it a little bit more real than just flying through 60 PowerPoints. It is.
Keeps moving on you.
Keeps moving. Clip it over
Well, and
here.
we'll try to show something that's just a little bit different than what we just got done seeing in the big session this morning too. So hopefully we've added in some unique little nuggets of information, and we're going to walk out of here and you're going to feel like you have an advantage over every single person that did not attend this session. So everyone in this room is special.
All right, so is this better? Is the mic on now? Good? Okay, I'll just try to speak up too. So, yeah, I don't know what, sit here and hold it.
You're going to make the guy with the broken arm hold it.
God. All right.
You're saying it's only on one speaker?
How's that? Is that better?
We have Paul in stereo.
Paul in stereo, yeah. Turn it up a little bit. Is there another mic? Use that.
Here, we can try this.
That was good. Yeah, that was good. Okay. So this morning and in a number of places, we want to kind of lay the context for ArcGIS Online too, because of the way it works with connected and distributed GIS. There's a couple of key points with that and a couple of things to really be thinking about, because it's really evolving into this system of systems, interconnectedness. There were so many examples of that this morning. Probably the most complex of those was the collaboration piece between multiple portals and things, which is just a fantastic thing that's working well with Portal right now, but it's also coming to online. But the whole idea with this, and a couple of key points, is, of course, that you access anywhere, anytime, on any device. And of course, that's exactly how things work anymore, particularly with apps and things that you are developing as well. It's about visualization and analytics. And we're going to show a lot of that. Really, visualization is really kind of the starting point of things, putting points on a map and information on a map, but it's really important to drive the analytics in there too. We'll talk about some of the services and capabilities that are available there. It's also a platform to integrate other business systems. So many organizations take the location capabilities of data, or the location information that's contained in the data, and not only drive it into standalone GIS kind of applications, but also drive that into things like asset management systems, HR systems, all kinds of things like that. The big thing too with distributed is it enables collaboration. So we see so many more people in organizations working with GIS. So it's not just about a GIS group of people anymore. It's about the entire organization getting involved, putting their data, their content into things, and making it a much larger thing than it ever was before. And then of course, all this, ArcGIS Online has kind of on top of it this map-centric way of organizing content, a content management system on top of that. We'll touch on that a little bit. We're probably mostly not going to talk about that, but that's certainly a capability that the system has to organize that content and put it all together for you.
Cool. All right, so into the fun slide.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times we're talking about, what is ArcGIS Online? Everybody kind of has their own idea and interpretations of what it is. And so I like to look at it just a little bit different, because we see all these demos, we know everything connects to it, but what is actually inside the box? So hence we have our box of ArcGIS Online goodness, and we're going to start to explore and talk about these different Lego pieces. So first and foremost, I can host data in ArcGIS Online. So this could just be features that live as a static JSON object to work with and add to my map. Or these could be features that we load into a database. It's transactional. We can add, we can delete. We can load in thousands and thousands, millions of records, and then start to query those out and page through the results. Or we can generate tiles. So the tiles render really, really fast. And it's just a way of kind of delivering our maps even quicker instead of serving over all of the features. So we kind of lump those in and say those are a few different options that we have to host data. On top of the data, we have these analytical services. So we saw that really amazing demonstration with the Alexa bot. It queried out and said, oh, I'm going to look at one of these living atlas layers, pull out and actually tell you how many people are in this, how many neighbors Andrew had. So awesome, we know that those services are there. And then, as Paul hinted on, visualizations and views. So we saw a really cool demo this morning, how we could create a view of the data, the visualization piece. Great, it's on the map. Now what do we want to start to do with it? How do we want to convey this information or tell that story? Because when we're making a map, it's not just, oh, hey, done, check the box. You're trying to communicate something. You did some sort of analysis. You're putting these points on there for a reason. This visualization helps emphasize your point. It's really key to your communication. In addition to that, too, we also have content. So lots of amazing content coming from the Living Atlas, a lot of great base maps. We'll talk about how some of these amazing base maps get used. And then all of these things kind of wrap together in our maps and applications. So we can create something called a web map. It has layers. It can be some of the data that we've hosted. It can be some of the Living Atlas content. And then once we have our web map container, we share that out through an application. And we have a lot of those hosted templates in there already. Now, looking at all these different Lego blocks, one way that we go ahead and access these is through an account. So great, I'm going to create an account. I have folders, and then I can, as I start to create, host data, if I create maps, excellent. Those things live inside my folders. And if I want to go ahead and share those out, I can use groups. So this is kind of getting into that sharing model, or how Paul started talking about collaboration. I used to work in a small GIS department. For us, collaboration meant get it off my desk. So I could do the thing and then hand it off to the owner, and then they could go do more with it. So I didn't have to keep going with that. But that's really how our sharing model works. So I want to put it in a group. Maybe I want to invite Mike into my group. He's going to be in there and he can make some modifications and edits to it. Now, we have some big applications that interact with these Lego components of what's inside that box. And we know one of these is ArcGIS Pro. So we saw some interesting demonstrations today. Some examples from Pro, maybe we want to generate vector tiles and then publish that up to online. Great, that was one thing. Pro can do geocoding, so it's going to leverage some of those analytical services. So really nice, kind of a thick client or heavy client that you run on your desktop. Then we have the ArcGIS.com interface. So this is a website where I can log in, and through the web, I'm interacting with all of these different Lego pieces. So I create my web map, I upload a shape file or a CSV, and then I want to visualize it, and I'm only doing that in a browser. Excellent, I'm using ArcGIS.com for that. Now on the side over here, and why I've put ArcGIS.com and ArcGIS Pro over there is, because that's kind of where we have a little bit more of our geocentric approach into the Lego pieces. But then we go to the other side is, all right, now that I've made something and I want to share it out with the world, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do it through an application. So I have lots of options. We have templates, we have builders. I can go do something all on my own. So I'm delivering that to somebody. That's usually a URL to that app. But sometimes I have all of this content organized in here and I want to share more than just a URL to a map. So this is where I might want to go ahead and create an open data site. So I can share this data out, I can build some charts, I can highlight the applications, I can link off to them. It's really a beautiful website builder for all of our ArcGIS content, and allows us to kind of organize behind a certain theme or present this information to the public. And then they can look through it, click out to different applications, go download data. You really have a lot of control over the page from that point.
So as we go forward with the presentation, think about this diagram in your mind. Think about those services and content that then make up the web map, that then make up the applications, and how people interact with that, or how the end users interact with that. This will be kind of our map going forward of how we laid out the presentation. You'll see it in each of the slides and kind of what we're talking about as which component we're talking about in online as we keep moving forward.
because we don't want you to have to burn that into your mind after lunch. We're a little cloudy, we're a little tired. So we have it in every slide.
Mini version.
Yeah, so we'll reference this. And first off, we're just going to start talking about hosted data. Tables. This is an amazing one. I work at Esri, and I spend a lot of the time talking to people about we support operational data or non-spatial data. And they're always amazed by that. Like, well, I just thought you guys did maps. Hey, spoiler alert, tabular data is the same, it just doesn't have the geographic component. So we can go ahead and chart that information, we can make it available for download. How many people in here knew if you upload a CSV file to ArcGIS Online, you create a table service, and you actually have an item called table? Man in the purple shirt's my favorite today, thank you. And I'm really impressed. There was a lot of people that said you knew about this.
So it's a really interesting capability as you're building applications too, that you're thinking about not only things that are going to be building maps, but you can also use this for the tables that drive the rest of your app.
Yeah, and a really interesting use case around this, somebody was actually creating a table in ArcGIS Online, and their application, you had to kind of log in and then it tracked your progress. They weren't using ArcGIS Online logins, they were just using like an app login, but they were storing all of this in the table. And so then when you'd go back and I visited different checkpoints, it was recording all of this information for me, and they just needed a table to write into. Something that they could query out, write, add, delete. So pretty cool. Next piece we get into is feature layers. So this is what we call them as your items in your My Content in ArcGIS Online. And these feature layers actually have two different implementations. So one type of feature layer is called a collection. That's where it's actually more static JSON. It's less than 1,000 features. This data's not changing a lot. Cool. It's a very lightweight option for me. It's very fast. Or the other implementation here is that service. So it's a lot more transactional. I want to add data. I want to delete data. I want to store in over 1,000 records and then be able to query that out and start to page through it. And these feature layers, I can go ahead and then start to add them to the map. So if it's a collect series of points, people are out in the field using their mobile device collecting points, or again, kind of playing with their Alexa bot, and it's writing into this database. So it supports editing. Then another form that we can talk about is tiles. So we actually have two different implementations of tiles. One is raster tiles. So this is where we pre-cook a lot of the map images, and then you add them to the map, and we're just filling them in really fast. So you go to pan a map and you ever see the squares start to pop in? Right. That's those raster tiles. Yeah, very high performance. Then the other version that we have is vector tiles. And so in vector tiles, we use ArcGIS Pro to go ahead and generate these and then publish them up to online. And what this does is, instead of saying, hey, here's the flat image that's already pre-rendered, it's really just like this little packet of data, and then we can start to style it different ways. So I can have, and like what we've done with some of our base maps, and we build these vector tiles out, it's that same vector tile data set, and we can just style it and render it all of these different unique ways. So it just gives us a lot of different views or windows to that content.
Exactly.
Now, one of the advantages that we have, or what we want to do when we're hosting data in online, is the capability of taking it offline. So don't worry, we're not locked to the cloud because I lost my internet connection, I'm in trouble, and we can do offline workflows. And if we're just getting started, I think people are sort of, oh, I could host data locally, should I host it in online? I'm biased. I'm all for hosting it in online. It's incredibly cheap. So in the United States, we charge 2.4 credits for every 10 megabytes. That's 24 cents for 10 megabytes. And people are like, oh, but in Dropbox, I get all this space. No, it's not about all that space, because this is actually a transactional database. It has auto-scaling web services in front of it. We've had customers that have actually looked at this and said, all right, since you have all of these auto-scaling web servers in front of that, it's cheaper for us to just go ahead and give you our 260 data sets and store it up there, because the amount that we would spend in Amazon or Azure trying to scale this out and testing and auto-scaling, it's just not worth it. And when we talk about scaling, we see that these hosted feature services really can handle quite a load. So we see this is taken on probably any random day, about 1,600 requests per second.
Yep.
And the thing just hums along. Right. At the top there, we see CPU usage of all the different hives, little spikes here and there. Everything just keeps humming along. If one of those CPUs were to spike too long, it's not your problem, it's ours. We go in there, we fix it, and we get it going back up.
I guess there's a couple things there. There's hosted in the cloud means it's on us to manage that infrastructure for you and guarantee a level of performance across that. The other part there is that you don't see the number 1,600 going up. It goes up to 3,000 requests per second at a peak during the day. But the point of that is it's scalable, and we take care of the scalability of that too, regardless. And we have an example coming up that'll show you the kind of scale that the system is actually capable of.
All right, talking about some of the analytical services, so we'll be moving just a little bit faster, is geocoding. So we have a fantastic geocoder, excellent data behind there that we use in enterprise geocoding applications. These are very large businesses that care about being as precise as possible. Excellent, we have that service here. You can build your app against that as well. We can also use some of the different services for directions or logistics. So how do I want to go ahead and schedule 3 stops, optimize a route, or generate drive and walk times. We even have a tie into some live traffic data that's out there. Geo-enrichment, so we have, I think, over 1,700 variables that you can pick and choose and add to your data. So you can put just a point on a map. This could be a point that you've clicked and just decided randomly right here. These could be your customers that you geocode, and we don't really have any depth to them. Well, what we can do is we can enrich it, and we add depth to that point. So we start to know about the demographics behind that particular location.
Yeah, so the thing about the analytical services too is, quite often, the first thing that people do in developing applications is do the visualization piece. They have some kind of content that they want to show on a map, but these are the kind of things that add, I think you used the word depth and interest in the application, particularly with things like geo-enrichment. Show me a little bit more about those points. Show me the demographics that are around that. Do things like drive times. Add that richer level of services to applications.
Mm-hmm. And then analysis. So we have some different tools to perform analysis. We could do buffers. There's a lot of great options in there that you can try to figure out. Maybe we want to be a little bit more predictive. We know certain conditions are true, therefore something's going to happen. All of these services are there. We can just kind of throw our data at them, it processes, and then brings back a result. Now, getting into the visualization piece a little bit, so starting to talk about smart mapping. How many people have used the smart mapping functionality? Just a handful. It's kind of awesome. We've really started making a huge step forward of creating great defaults for people.
Right, so with smart mapping, the concept here is that there's a couple of things here. We can bring richer ways to visualize data, but the other thing is sometimes we can provide some really good guidance as to the best way to display that. We don't want to create this very powerful system online that enables people to make really ugly and maps that don't make sense. We can provide a whole bunch of guidance with smart mapping. What kind of visualizations look the best? What kind of, how can you put that information together that we think in looking at the data when you go to build the map, it's going to make it a great looking map. The other side of that, of course, is that a lot of you are smart enough to understand that, well, I want to tweak it a little bit this way, or I want to. So the tools available in smart mapping will guide you through that, but also give you all the knobs and buttons and things to make it look even, like you want it to do, or you might want to know about.
Yeah. And then even taking it a step further, so this is something that the team recently introduced, is starting to work with an expression language. So how can we leverage this expression language that we have called Arcade to go ahead and generate some more interesting maps? It's a little bit more dynamic on the data. There are sessions on cartography and some smart mapping here at the Dev Summit, and then you can head over to the booth and get more information on that. And especially sessions on Arcade. This is going to be a really interesting one. And then the other way, actually talking about visualizing some data too, that people don't always think about is charts. We started paying attention to charts. So I have this data. It's spatial or it's non-spatial. We don't really care. I want to go ahead and show, is it increasing over time? What is the crimes of 2015 compared to crimes in 2016? So, and I think that's Demosaurus. He's here to indicate that we're going to switch over. Is that updating over there? Nope. So if I pause, just kidding.
Nope. There we go. Switching.
Cool. All right. And
Did it the hard way.
no,
It's working?
it is. So here's one of the maps. And if you want to talk about the cyclones.
Sure. So we're just talking about visualization and the amount of content that you can put on, of course. Here's a tropical cyclone exposure in the United States over a long period of time. So, the point of this was not to see how much data we could throw up onto a map. But the point here is that you can really have some interesting capabilities in putting together multiple data sets that you see on the side there and into some really visually interesting ways. And you start to see, as you would pick through this data, you would start to see trends and information and get that visualization leading to something like insight and an understanding about the content that's there.
Yep. And the next one that we talked about was using an expression. So
Right.
This is actually the interface where we're populating this arcade expression script. And we can see here that we're looking at youth population.
So this is new in December. So interesting ways to further work with the data and create these expressions around what you show on here. So what Andrew's got there on the screen is actually the dialogue that you would use to put this together from the data or from the attributes in the feature service that you've got.
Then we hit OK.
And then we hit OK, and you can see how that then visualized the map. If you want to see a lot more of these, there's a whole group in ArcGIS Online that has a lot of these expressions built.
Yep. And then last but not least, we talked about charting. So we actually have a chart library that we've been working on, and I always like to talk about it. It's called Cedar. So it helps convert what do we have coming from our ArcGIS services into a specification that we can go ahead and start charting. So we can see that we have a lot of different types here. If I want to go ahead and create a bar chart, pretty basic. I can see the interactions here. I can do style overrides, and then the code is down here. So this is completely open source. Anybody can grab it and start working on it. And we'll see some examples later where some of our customers have taken this developer approach of generating their own charts as well. Just gave away the fun.
Yeah. So content. So of course, one of the big attributes that ArcGIS Online brings, of course, is content and base maps that you can use to start to build your applications on top of. The living atlas layers are this continually growing set of authoritative information, not only from Esri, but from some of our key partners. So it's information that you can use, including street maps and imagery. Of course, things like boundaries and places, landscape, oceans, and urban systems, transportation on top of that, as well as historical maps. So there's thousands of these available to you in terms of starting to build that base layer or whatever maps you want to put onto your content or into your application. Interesting story, like how many base maps ArcGIS Online is actually serving. You can see over time here, starting back in 2012, how many we were serving up to, I'll talk about the bump there, but we're talking about over 15 billion or more maps per month served out of there. So it's, the point of this is that there's such a wide variety of stuff. Tap into it. Take advantage of these because it's there. It's a huge asset, particularly if you're thinking about building applications on top of the platform and starting with ArcGIS Online.
Cool.
Now, the bump. So last summer, a developer decided to use ArcGIS Online, and particularly our base maps, to show where Pokemon were on top of it. And at first it was, I remember walking down the hall and somebody said, hey, somebody created a Pokemon map. I'm like, oh, that's cool. What's going on? And they're like, oh, it's about, 1,000 maps an hour. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. Well, over the next couple of days, it absolutely surged as, of course, people who were searching for Pokemon grab this application using ArcGIS Online. To the point at the peak, we were serving out, I think it was about 18,000 requests per second for Pokemon maps. So, yeah. But the better story for you is not so much the Pokemon, but this thing is scalable, incredibly scalable. We scaled to meet that demand, and you can see it came and it went over a couple of weeks. That the Pokemon guys ended up shutting them down, but in the meantime, we actually showed some pretty interesting things about ArcGIS Online, how robust it was, how scalable it was, how quickly and easy it was for somebody to put together a really cool application.
Yeah. If you're curious, or for historical reasons, the app was actually called PokeVision.
Yeah.
And so you could actually see where they were hidden from the app. So there was cheaters all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Using this.
Yeah, and every once in a while, someone, Dean, who handles a lot of our content, is up here smiling too, because he was part of that fun that summer. We see it still. People try to hack the Niantic APIs for Pokemon, and every once in a while, a map will. It's kind of this cat and mouse game they have going on with ArcGIS Online maps in the background.
It pops up. We don't see Dean for a while, and he's out chasing Pikachu around Redlands. So. Getting into some of the other content that we have in here, maps and apps, we talk heavily about this in many, many sessions, but the whole concept is we create this web map. It's a container, and it's bringing in data from multiple different sources. So this could be the feature service that I've created, so I've published data, I'm hosting it online, or my vector tiles. I could also bring in some other live data. So if we wanted to bring in a live stream of like earthquakes or hurricanes or anything else that's out there, that all gets kind of packaged in that container. And then when I open that web map in an application, great, I see it in the web app. If I open it up in a native app, it's right there. If it goes in a desktop app, it's right there. So it's kind of this portable container. And as I mentioned, these applications, tons of them are ready to use. We have different concepts to launch into these too, where it's, we may have a template or we have builders, and we'll talk about those in just a moment as well.
So accounts. So we've talked about some of the building blocks of what's there in terms of like services and content, but of course, you have to have this pretty robust system on top of this for kind of named users and how you manage them. In particular, there's a lot of depth around providing security, and we talked a little bit about the sharing models that are built into the system. That is, you can keep content private to yourself, you can share it with groups, you can share it with an entire organization, or you can share it out to the world with open data, for example. All these things are baked into ArcGIS Online and available to you to use, those named users, those sharing concepts, those security, privacy, how things are shared, how things are not shared, the kinds of privileges and roles. So what capabilities do you provide to different users and what don't you? Do you want people to have the capability of geocoding? Do you want them doing analytics? Or do you not want them doing those kind of things? It's got all the pieces to do that administration on top of them, and they're very robust. We've built them in. You can think of things like authentication being built in as part of this too, where you can use an organization's existing authentication that they've got, or you can use one that ArcGIS Online brings, or you can use both of those.
Yeah. And the other thing is we think about these accounts, they're also these storage containers. So I have an account, it has a map, it can have an application in there. I can create a group, I can put things in there, I can invite other accounts. All of this is powered behind it, or all of this has an API behind it. So we actually document that, called Portal API, even though it's an online. It's just the concept of that being the big portal. And so there's a lot of different things that we can develop against this. Yeah, we build a lot of functionality into the application. Sometimes we don't cover everything that's in there. So you see that we can switch over to another demo here. And we'll see a couple different examples of what people have done using this Portal API. So the first one, this was actually done by some employees at Esri, and they created this little application called the AGO Assistant. So you can go out here, you want to add to it, please do, they'd be happy. And if we open this one up, just go ahead and log into ArcGIS Online. I'll give you permission. And now I can start to look at my content. So I want to and maybe I want to copy content. So from my account, I think she's loading in there. So here's everything that I have in my account. Excellent. I can take some of these different items, copy them to another account. We're just using that same API. Do I want to view my stats? So lovely picture of me and my dog Lloyd. And actually showing, parcel state plane is one of my most popular feature services. It has 2,612 views. Or another thing that's kind of interesting too is all of these items stored in ArcGIS Online, I think I clicked on it, are actually just all the items live in there. They're stored as JSON. So if we started to look in here, let's take a look in the root. Great, we have maybe an application.
So the takeaway from this is that not only do you have the capabilities to do things like mapping, analytics, and visualizations, but also baked into this are all the administrative things. You can build apps just around administrative tasks as well.
And so we can look into this item JSON. Maybe we want to pull information out of it, like one of our colleagues, Adam Pfister, did when he built this SDG promoter application. This is very similar to what we see with the Living Atlas. Again, I'm logged in. We're looking in my content. One of my favorite groups is Andrew's Open Data Group. And we can see that I have a couple different items in here, or data sets. So if I click on this, I actually start to see that I have a score. So he's just looking at all of that content and saying, hey, this is kind of questionable. You're getting a 51 out of 100. Hey, I'm failing. So what do I need to do to improve this? I could change the title. There's different things about the summary, get into the description. Now, do I want to tell somebody, hey, this has been reviewed? So we'll say it's currently being reviewed or it's been pending. Excellent. Can kind of update a status on this. And this was solving a particular problem that we're working on with these sustainable development goals with the UN. And I would say yet even taking this the third step or even farther is people have said, hey, there's all of these different administrative functions. Let's go ahead and build an entire application that probably fills some different gaps that are there and online and then list it in the marketplace. So we know that there's a nice startup out there, GeoJob. They created these admin tools. Great. It just provides some different functionality to do some administrative tasks. So just kind of showing some purpose and application of why you might be interested in looking at the content side of things.
So in some ways, that's really, you can think about that as extending what we're offering in ArcGIS Online or across the platform too.
Cool. All right.
So kind of taking all these concepts and some of these things that we've mapped out here and start to thinking about building applications. So I was pretty excited this morning in the plenary because I think it was Ewan was actually talking like right to this slide, and I wanted to just kind of go back on it a little bit as we talk to you guys about building applications. You have kind of a range of things, and we've tried to show this on the slide with each of those three things. First, there's configured templates that you've got. So it's a template. You can take it, you can customize it, or you can literally take a map and pour it into that, and you've got an app that's good to go. Kelly Hutchins this morning showed how those templates actually can have a similar look and feel across all of them for an organization too, which is a really cool new feature.
That's brilliant.
As you start to kind of slide over toward completely custom, we have builders in there. Builders take those templates and a lot of that functionality and allow you to put them together in much more customized ways. Customize it a little bit more, maybe even take the pro version of that and build your own widgets on top of that and then serve those out. And then the whole way to the right-hand side is using the APIs and SDKs to completely build an app from scratch, completely customized application. All of these can use all the things that we've been talking about so far. So content, administrative capabilities, the web maps, analytics. Each of them can use each one of those. It's just a matter of how you want to put it together. If you have an app you have to put together, or even as maybe even a prototype or something you want to get started, configured application or the configured templates, go for it, you've got it. Maybe start building that the one with the APIs and SDKs later.
And it helps you leverage your expertise, because maybe part of it is you're really into developing the data or doing something around that, but you're not very big into building JavaScript apps. Great, we have these templates for the no grammar, and then we go to the other side. Awesome, I can write something custom in an iOS SDK for the programmer. Web App Builder. So this is something I go ahead in ArcGIS Online. I've created my web map. I can share it out and enter into this experience. So we see from our Lego bricks, and this is an application that sits on top, and it can use all of those things. And there's a lot of out-of-the-box widgets that can be added to your Web App Builder application. Start to add functionality to it, help work on that problem you're trying to solve. Why did you start doing this project to begin with? But you can also, because this falls into the developer category, you can download this and completely customize it. So we've seen people say, hey, I want to download the whole thing and reskin it and make it look completely different. Okay, fine. You have that option and you have that flexibility with the builder.
So what you're saying there is it's not only a way to complete an application, but it's also a way to get one started to a certain point and then take it from there.
Yeah, so you don't have to do the bones, you can just do the widget.
Yep.
Next, if we want to start stepping out of what we're doing with these the templates or the builders, hey, I want to go build something custom, awesome. And we have some different mapping APIs that you can work with. So we saw some amazing functionality, and we'll show one in a little bit, on using the JavaScript API. It's very full-featured. It has a lot of capabilities to it. But we also have another connector out there. We have something called Esri Leaflet. So how do we add ArcGIS web services onto leaflet maps? Because maybe you're a little bit more comfortable or that API. It's something that's very lightweight too. So we see in this example here, this map was embedded in the Seattle Times. So this is a page, gets a lot of views, really lightweight. It doesn't really need a whole lot of functionality tied to it. All right.
Time for a demo.
Cool. So just looking through some of the different ones that we have here, this is a web app builder application. So we can start to zoom in here, and we can explore all these New York City landmarks. I can click on it. Great, learn more about this particular feature. Up here I can search on particular landmarks. So this becomes a nice application for tourists. And here's a legend. All of these are these different configurable widgets. So somebody was able to just add those in here. This is on the lower side of the development chain. The next one that we have, and this is kind of amazing, looking at New York City and actually building out this Vision Zero application. So if we want to go ahead and hit play, great, it's going to zoom me around. The tiles load in, what's happening over here. I can visit all of these just different sections around the city. This is where some of that really having that full-featured API comes in handy, because we're tilting, we're panning, we're zooming.
So just a couple of cool things about this. Of course, like the summary statistics at the bottom are visualizing or showing you the information about what's shown on the screen. But some of the cool things about this, of course, is that if the data or the content that changed in the background, it's of course going to be reflected into the statistics and things that are put together with the app. So if you have dynamic data, you can put these really cool applications on top of it, and it'll just work going forward.
So like in the example right there, we actually bring in a photo from one of the traffic cameras. So pretty interesting stuff here. Getting into the other one, we mentioned what we could do with Esri Leaflet. So this is out here, it's out on GitHub. A lot of different examples of what can be done. Again, you'll see it doesn't have everything that JavaScript API does. So this is really about choosing the right tool for the job. If you need all the tools and we have them available, you don't need all the tools, you have another option. One of the maps that we'll see here, as I mentioned, in the Seattle Times. So we start to scroll down. There's the page about their apartments. Great. There's the map. So they can upload some data, create this little web map. They happen to choose Leaflet and embed it right in their page. So that's an example. As
we look at traffic in ArcGIS Online, probably a good portion of it is a different type of app that we're not exactly detailing today as a story map. That accounts for a lot of maps, but many applications get embedded into websites like that too. So they're not all just standalone applications.
Cool. Now we also have other options if we're not just building things on the web. Great, I'm not in the business of building a brand new application, but we're really inspired by what Chris Fox was showing us with add-ins that go into ArcGIS Pro. Awesome, I can do that. So I can build these different add-in functions, minimize sections on the ribbon. Maybe I have somebody else within my organization, or we talk about it at a city. Hey, they're in a different department. I'm going to take some sharp knives out of the drawer. I'm going to hide things on the UI and only let them hit 3 buttons. So that way they can do their job. They can take ownership of entering all of this data. Or we even have another product called Operations Dashboard. So if I want to go ahead and build different widgets using the JavaScript API, I can plug those in there. And then if I want to go full featured and build something from scratch and then list it in an app store, awesome. There's all these runtime SDKs. So it can run on all different native devices. We have some interesting ones like Xamarin, cross-platform. So it's really about what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and then the application becomes this delivery method. So in this case, you can kind of just tag on to something that's already there, leveraging this technology. As we get towards the end here, this is interesting. So we've walked through uploading data, using analytic services, creating web maps, creating some applications. Now, how are we going to present this? We can just send somebody, hey, here's a URL, just go open it. But how do we let people kind of discover this and put a little bit more of a natural feel to it? So we've been working with a lot of cities and counties around the world. And one thing everybody has in common is they already have a website. And that website typically already has branding standards. It's got to be a particular color of blue. It's got to look like this. The header is exactly like this. Awesome. And then they also have ArcGIS Online. So they're loading in data. They're creating really cool content over here. And what we're enabling people to do now is build some sites. And what these sites do is they start to bridge the gap from our core website over to all of our content. And so by applying this custom HTML and CSS, we can bring over that exact header that's on our city's website, put it on our ArcGIS site, and then I can start to configure that, introduce somebody. So that first graphic that we see here is kind of our home page, and then I start to get into these additional pages beyond that. And these additional pages provide more context. So if I want to start to know about what is it like to live in a safe community? Maybe that's a map, that's a chart, that's a picture of a cop hugging a baby. Sweet. You can put all of that in there, and it's one way that you're building this web page to tell your story and bring your content to life. So, last time that we have to do this horrible transition.
It's a Mac.
It is. So here's an example. This is actually what we've turned over and City of Raleigh's been running with. And this is a site that they've created for transportation and transit. So they've applied their custom header. I link off to city assets and websites right here. And then I go in, great. On this transit and transportation initiative at the City of Raleigh, objective 1 is on communicate transportation, transit, and land use vision. Everybody loves pictures instead of words. And then we can go ahead and even embed a YouTube video and start playing that. Wow, we're putting rich content in the pages. That's awesome. We scroll down here. Something happened on this demo-y stage right now. There's a beautiful chart in here. So close your eyes if they're not already closed and think about amazing charts. But they're just putting more and more context to the data. So when they share out and they have these open data sites, because we want to go ahead and download that data for fact checking, or academics want it, great, they can still get to it. But more importantly, I can tell my story on top of it. You can get down and embed a map. Looking at their other site, so we talk about safe, vibrant, and healthy communities. Excellent. Keep bridging this, or building the bridge over to our content. Oh wow, we have 85 911 calls answered in less than 10 seconds. That's not meeting their metric. And maybe we want to go ahead and answer 200, or it's got to be higher or lower. So this is a way that they're actually building in performance dashboards, and these things can be data driven. So as the web services or the data is changing, these cards can start to dynamically change. If that makes our mayors and executives really nervous, we can use static HTML too, and then just agree every month we'll update it. We get down here, we start to see crime. Again, I'm going to need your imagination for a beautiful chart here. And they've surfaced a web map that they've created. Why are they retaining this class 1 fire rating? Beautiful text about it. Go get the data. Oh, here's the map. So really nice way that we can put all of this content or context to our content. And how this is done is, from our ArcGIS Online organization, we can enable open data, and it brings us into the open data admin. I can go in and create a new site. It's going to ask me some different parameters. We can even put in a custom URL. So if you own the domain and then you want to make it, data.mycity.gov, you can do that. We'll go in here and maybe just check out the site editor on one site that I have built up. So here's a look we're taking at City of Raleigh strategic plan. There's our site editor. So I mentioned the header settings. So I'm using custom HTML, CSS. I put the CSS over here on the side, and the HTML up here in this block. That's what gives me that exact same look that's on my regular website. I have a theme builder, so if I want to go ahead and change any of the colors, I can do that, and then it'll apply an accent everywhere else down the line. We're going to continue to add to this, so fonts we know are really important. We want to use a specific one, so we're going to want to let you be able to do that. And then the fun part is we get into this layout builder. So the way that these pages are built is by taking a row, dropping it onto the page, and then going over and grabbing a card and dropping it in that row. So if I put an image card, I can put in a text card, and one of our developers lovingly shipped this morning, I believe from Sherman's Patio, is I can go in here and grab a chart card. So I'll put the chart card right there. Excellent. And now I can go in, I can configure this out, whatever text I want to put in here, or it supports HTML and Markdown. For my picture, I have a URL to a picture. Awesome. Insert picture of cop hugging kittens. Or I want to go ahead and generate my chart. So let's go ahead and find a data set, and I can pick the different variables to go ahead and generate that chart. Or we see this option that I can use that use custom JSON. So if I was playing with Cedar, I can copy and paste some of that JSON and put it in here. We'll generate the chart for you. Now, we do have some other examples out here. So really great page, goes through and actually has all of these different kind of tips. Here's the code that we put in there. We are going to have a session later today, I believe at 5:30, on customizing your open data site. So we'll talk more about this. And then we're going to have a follow-up, more advanced session, I believe on Wednesday or Thursday. We can do a demo of how to use the Agenda Explorer app. But take a search for open data, and we'll talk in detail about how we can do even more customized things. So, hey, I want the search bar to be really wide. And we had to answer that one recently. Great, we give you control over that, to style it out. All right.
So kind of two last things as we wrap up. Marketplace and other resources for you. We wanted to make sure and talk about the marketplace, because as app developers, as part of the platform, we want you to have the exposure of all the other ArcGIS users and organizations that are out there. So Marketplace has really evolved quickly over the last couple years. It's this destination for both people looking for applications, but also places for developers and partners to put applications in there to be purchased. As you can participate as a partner, as a distributor, or even as a startup. We have programs for all of that. Right now, today, you can sell your applications there, and you can sell content. Coming very soon, we're wrapping e-commerce into this. So it's a completely automated system. You put your application up there, people buy it, and you get paid for it, all as part of the system. Right now, that piece of it is back to you to be able to do that.
And it's kind of amazing if we think about, okay, so I know how to create a templated application that uses shared styling from an organization. I could create an app, and then somebody buys it over here. Great, it shows up over there, it's blue. Somebody buys it over here, use that same code base, now it's showing up red. Oh, cool, I can tap into all of these different portal properties and some of the different Lego pieces that we were showing today.
Pretty easy to get started. If you want to just check this out, worth going to marketplace.arcgis.com. Up in the upper header, there is a thing for getting started. Provides you all the information that you would need to do. And I would also encourage you to go see Alan Cassidy at the Expo. He's going to be there the rest of the week to talk to developers and talk about how to get into Marketplace, what all other cool things are coming. So resources, what else is there? So Andrew and I mean, it's pretty challenging to cover ArcGIS Online in an hour. We're talking about just some services and content and things that are out there, but there's a lot deeper dives and there's a lot more information for you out there. Let me just point out a couple. First is, of course, the developer site itself. This is probably the go-to place. If you haven't gone to developers.arcgis.com, go check it out. There's everything from developer programs there to sample code, information about the APIs, how it all comes together, content that you can get. A lot of what we covered is detailed there as well. Let's say you want to do some training on this. The cool part about ArcGIS Online training is we've made it all free. So there's training from everywhere from I'm a user of the system. So let's say you build something and you want to take advantage of some of our training and package it in. But there's also training for administrators, how to administrate an ArcGIS Online subscription. So all the training is there at our training site. Of course, there's the doc, right? There's online doc. But even more than that, if you go to the ArcGIS Online documentation, you'll see links to the blogs. This has really become a real gem for us within ArcGIS Online. A lot of the developers who work on something before a release will then go back and blog about how to use it. So it's really become a really robust set of information for it. And then finally, our GitHub site for Esri. You even showed a couple of things that were there. So
yeah, and actually ran into, it was a customer in New Zealand actually reached out to us through GitHub and said, hey, I'm going to be at the Dev Summit. Will somebody meet with me to talk about what I built using this code that we had out there? We're like, yeah, sure. And it was amazing what he did. It was actually like a thick client application, so it was kind of like web-based, but installed on a laptop. And the end user could upload a Excel file or a CSV. They'd parse it. He'd create stuff in ArcGIS Online. He was leveraging those accounts, leveraging the data hosting, doing some analytics, returning data back to them. These people never, ever logged into ArcGIS.com. They didn't even know that they have an ArcGIS.com account because the app is just using all of those things in the background. And it was really cool. Great compliment from him today. He said, because I was like, nice to meet you and everything. Because I'm a polite person. My mother did a good job. And he sent back and he said, anytime my partner and I, business partner, gets stuck and we can't figure something out, we go search Esri's GitHub site because you guys usually have a project there or you have a ton of code that helps get us further along. He's like, thanks for doing this. This is awesome. So.
Yeah, so we're going to go to questions now. We tried to leave a bunch of time here at the end, but do take the survey. Andrew and I we've done this a couple of years now. We're interested in how we can provide you with better information about ArcGIS Online because we definitely would love to come back and do it again. So tell us what you think. Take the survey. Cool. So let's take some questions. What questions do you have?
Is there any cost difference between table storage versus options?
Excellent. So the question is there any difference or difference in the cost for storing tables versus like geographic features? So we use the storage size as our measure of cost. So if the tabular data is 10 megabytes and your spatial data is 10 megabytes, it's the exact same. But by nature, geometry and all the vertices could be larger. So in some ways, geometry could feel like it's costing more, but it's just because it's more data. So it's the same measure of metric across data types.
Good question.
Okay.
Yes. So
when? Timeline?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking at April timeframe for putting the e-commerce part on top of Marketplace. Yep. Yes. It's well underway. The target was the Dev Summit, but we're just going to be just a bit beyond that, but we're there. Yeah, I've seen it. Works great. There are a couple of Esri partners who are already doing it. We have a couple who are trialing it through, so it's actually working at this point. Sure.
Question about the member levels you guys have. One and two. Our enterprise account right now has 300 users, and now we have 300, I think, level 2, 250 level 1.
Okay.
So does that mean you have a total of 550 then?
Yeah.
300 too.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my other question would be, is there something in the ArcGIS Online Assist or something, so we're not manually going through each user, changing them from a 2 to a 1 or something? Because basically when we got level 1 and 2, everyone I think was level 2, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we were
Right.
manually going through the people, but I think we have some users now.
Grab a beer.
Yeah, so,
Kill a Thursday night.
the questions are around, we introduced a new level, a level 1 user. So everybody prior to this was what we call a level 2 now. You have the capabilities of doing just about everything that's there. The difference is that a level 1 is really just has view capabilities. You're able to see an organization's private content, but you can't actually create content on top of that. So it was a huge demand within organizations to say, well, not everybody's building content and publishing and putting these things out there. I've got a bunch of executives who definitely need to see dashboards, but they're not going to do anything but view that. So we created another level. The question was, how do you make those adjustments right now? Mm-hmm. Right now you do, Andrew was sort of implying that, yeah, it is a 1 by 1, but maybe that's an opportunity to build an application on top of this as well.
I mean, we might have a script that could run through something. So, I mean, we've run some scripts where you just like mass delete 800 users. So, I mean, there might be something we could work off of. And then the other one to check in would be the GeoJob admin tools to see if they've added that. I don't know if they have or not.
So, yeah, just kind of go with that for a second here. So the level 1s are not only an opportunity for like organizations to expand out through them, but they're also definitely an opportunity for developers to create some really interesting things as add-ons to applications. So maybe not everybody's doing the analytics, but maybe you've got a whole nother host of people you could sell your apps to that just need to view it within an organization. And you can use those level 1s, which are a lot less expensive, to actually be able to do that and provide that. So maybe some cool ways to add some new features to your apps.
Yeah, or we've even seen with the ability to create sites and pages. So, I have a page, it's kind of internal, it's like the police thing. You know, that can be shared to the team, or we can share it to the organization, so then anybody, with an account can log in, they can see it. Okay, I see the page. Here's the mysterious crime information we don't want public. So there's different ways that we can kind of leverage that user. Any other questions? Yes. Can you create your own analytical services is the question. Right now, we don't actually offer hosted geoprocessing. So it'd be in the desktop world, I can chain 4 or 5 tools together and then publish it up to us. The option there is create geoprocessing services in server, and then you go the whole auto-scaling server route on things. But yeah, not hosted and online yet. Good question. I've been on the loop on that one.
Not, in other words, no. Not.
I'll just say yes, and then if you
not at this
blame
point,
him.
but it is one of those interesting things. We like to look at customized things like that. So yeah, online has 4 releases per year, and the pace at which we've been adding things. So certainly, as we start to get demand for things like that, we'll start to consider it and put it on the roadmaps. Yep.
Cool. Anything else you can think of while we're on stage and you want to make us look silly? No. I really like hard questions. Like every once in a while, like somebody hits you with a curveball.
You'll get those after.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for attending the session. Everybody who stayed is 10 times wiser. Yes, over here.
Mm-hmm. So the question was, we have the level 1s to get that, and it probably fits with some of the people or the personas that we have that we're selling apps to, but there's still it's still maybe a little bit high because they're only using it a couple times a year. What can we do to manage those? We don't have anything that fits that exact use case, but you know, something we can definitely think about how we have seen people. I don't want to say scripting, but doing some automation behind the licensing. So, you know, kind of put a user up, give somebody that license, they use it for a month, like a contractor would come in for a month or two, be able to see data, they leave, they bring it back, they reapply that license to somebody else. So some things are close, but not exactly what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. You are all free to leave. Hopefully everybody's like, I feel so much wiser from sitting in the session, and everybody that left early like missed out on all this golden information. There's a lot of great sessions over the rest of the day, and if you have any more follow-up questions, Paul and I will be hanging out. So take care, everyone.
Thank you.